I was sort of expecting Sam and oh, Sam Gold. All right, 5.
Don't need it at all. You want to? Not sure. I'll help you. Stay here and I'll leave. Stay next to me.
Just make sure your presence
gives me voice. 214.
Yeah.
All of a sudden we know it. Alright, here we go. 214. 1. Alright, we got 1, 2, 3. Alright, page 260. Batisei Ruach Neshma Barak Arash Gadol Barak Adonai Yekama Adonai Yimah Le'olam Kodesh Adonai Abraham Yitzchak Yisrael V'Yisrael Rise 217. Gadol Gadol Israel, Bhagav is my Karimi, Ibarat Rishava, Ibar Rishava, Vikadar Ritala Vitala, Spiritisha, Brigula, Brigula, Lamiko Brigata, Shirata, Atam Nesmata, Miranelma, Mibru, Amen. My correct zone. Marafasnaha, Adinama, Ishaha. It's sweet. Vayivin Zoron, Vayomer Moshe, Adonai, V'yamushuai V'yacham, V'yamishu V'sonecha, Mipanecha, Yimisyon Tetzei Torah, Yimisyon Tetzei Torah, Udvar Adonai, Mirzalayim, Barak Shenatan Torah, Barak Shenatan Torah, Le'amo Yisrael, Yidushato. Adonai, Hashem Yachad, Adonai, Hagidula, Hagidura, Tiferet, Ve'anetzach, Ve'ahod, Yichov Hashemayim U'aretz, Adonai, Amalacha, Ve'aminaseh, from the moon, Adonai Eloheinu, Ve'ishachadu, Le'havrat HaKadoshim. From the moon, Adonai Eloheinu, Ve'ishachadu, Le'havrat HaKadoshim. Ikadosh, Ikadosh, Adonai Eloheinu. You see it. Moving on. Amen. فهذا بشبه بشرتين ذهب كي تبنى أبدي بريشيشن يهارون وغشبي يتسير نعم بقايا بقايا يتسير معهم شادو يتعب مرنا بيتنا شادو يدا على أول يومنا أي شادو ده يلا رناها يتسير بقى
Memorial Mahar, Hafiyat Dumi, Eve, Banai, Lo, Exe Koshi, Biggie Show, Adonai, Biggie Show, Adonai, Rata Adonai, there's no part say, Devadol, Levola. Amen. For each, as we told them, although to take it, Avalim, Imra, Bene, Adonai, Hashelo, Eda, the Amo really showed the part of the Dova, in the Noi, and Hena, Mishpat, Yasela, Aferti, Papalo, Shera, Shabbat, Shela, Yasela, Pietana, and Casa. Download Shiva Ben Haba Rafael Alevi. The Samsi was up on the train, Shama, the sleep, as a English, Are, Ular, Orma, University, Catanamu, Makia, Mad, the Ghanaian East, Robin Sat, Mad, Palal, Abibi, Mad, Anashin Kikati, the Red, the following Stalin, Pitalet, Tavishanto, the Nika, Amakat, Praxito, Taser, Boyera, Amen. Right, we or hold on to it here. We'll do it Amal Rahamim Shofar. Giving other thing. Proven. Yes, dear Anderson. Problem in this work. Amen. So there I will say. I love enough emotion. Link cat. Rocky stars at the Amen.
Livnei Yisrael Am Krova, Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Lekavi Mizmor, Adonai Haaretz Tzmo, Shevel V'Yosei Ha'Gidu, Ayami Yesada, V'Yameh Royev, Ki Yameh Yaakov Yikol Yikita Hainu Barlela Asher Salashem Nasi Velo Yishval Nefirma Yisa Rakam Yetan Pustaka Velo Yishval Nen Yor Shas V'Nachim Nefis Sela Sushari Raseh Ikatsu V'Shayolam V'Yamam Melech HaKavod Mizem Melech HaKavod Adonai Yizus V'Nipor Adonai Yipor V'Napala Sushari Rashem Utsu V'Shayolam V'Yamam Melech HaKavod Mizem Melech HaKavod Adonai Tzavot V'Malach Exaini, Avaziki Besove, Melusha, Terafema, Tarkemon, Ve'ometimotema, Shalom, Ashirei Watama, God is my Kareem, you are happy, shut up, you are wrong and say, every blood you lost, be a good shot. We love, overcome your attacks. Attack them, attack, I'm your God, Hebrew, Amen. It is 2:23 to 2:29, then we got the individual. Another quiz on that. It's page 220. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Haavotinu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Yisrael Yirka Rachel Leah El Yimor Banara El Yon Yoav Hasadim Tovim Yaakov Yisrael Naseavot Tiviti Kavali Nenehem Masmor Yavah El Gozer Moshe Magi Baruch atah Adonai Magi Abraham Atah Gibor Adonai Bethlehem Iti Matar Avoloshia Mashi Parot Mori Hagashem El Kalim Nesed Bechayim Beitim Baravanim Rabim Samet Nofnim Berot Becholim Matir Asirim Umekayim Benatali Shene Afar Mitamah Hamagim Berosh Umitam Elah Melach Emim Bayam Asmir Yeshua V'lemad Elah Hayot Beitim Baruch Adonai Bechayim Beitim Change my issue, what's up? Each thing my rock, to the end of Karasa, El Zemiamar. Tonight's love, Mars, Lubatamar to Meru. Baron, behold, and the call, the break of Kakatu War. Glory, we suffer, we worship, in heaven, Akadosh Baruch Hu, Shem Shamayim v'Yosef, U'Mashanikara Hashamayim Imam, V'Shein HaTzos, V'Galei Eromi, Ru'Eloheinu Eloheinu Eloheinu Kakatu V'Torah V'Tatayim V'Shivotai Aleluya Ki Adonai Elohim HaShamayim Imam V'Haaretz Mizachateinu.
Guys. All right, so the day that is ending is remembering Annie Friedman and Annette Katz, Gladys Pollock, Dre Schumann, Joseph Solomon, and Meyer Spector, and Sam Weiner. Beginning tonight, Ernest Huth, Davine Levison, Aaron Lippman, and Philip Milikowski, and Carl Mittles. Warner's Cottage is on page 232. The custom during the winter months is to add an additional psalm. In terms of page 288. Sure, why not? Page 288. Song of Ascent. I lift my eyes to the mountains, from where will my help come? Page 288. From Adonai. Thou will not let you stumble, your guardian of the slumbers, for the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your guardian, your shelter at your side. By day the sun will not harm you, nor the moon by night. I will guard your going out for from now and forever. Page 282, Warner's Cottage, especially for the Yahrzeit. Vigadal, Vigadash, Merabah, Yaman, Ibrah, Kute, the young Nikma, Kute, Kaifon, Yom Kai, Israel, Galav, Isman, Karib, Rameh, Yanish, Merabah, Morah, Ikara, Ar, Vikrama, Vikase, Ar, Visalah, Daiwa, Mikol, Irkata, Shirata, Vishrakata, Nekamata, Nami Allah, Yehesh, Lama, Rabbi, Shmaya, Chaim, Alim, Yakolim, El, Oseh, Shalom, Yirmam, Yaseh, Shalom, Alim, Yaakol, Yisrael. Folks would like to stay for a snack and study. The snack is particularly good. The study is unusually boring. I don't know, we'll find out. The question is, should I let my son buy Chick-fil-A on my credit card?
Good person.
Should I? Me. All right. So we got, and then Havdalah will be at 7:04. So we'll have some study, and then we'll have the evening service in about half an hour. And specifically, and you guys are like, yes, and Rabbi Miller was paying
Yeah.
Maybe because it's not a kosher.
correct.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sure. Maybe. No, not everyone. They're not all letting me in art. I mean, yeah, fair enough. I refer you to David Cohen, who's not even a little bit of Cohen. But fair enough. You staying, you going? All right. All right. Most of them said their bagels to every side.
maybe there wasn't a bit. All right.
It's all in
No, your job has been taken away from you.
myself, stages, jobs.
I'm guessing.
Yes. This was Walter and Glenn. Lovely.
Yeah. That was the veggie. It's great, I tried that. Wanted to try something new.
And no one actually listened to the sermon.
But your sermon earlier today,
Yeah.
I've been to many synagogues, many services. I've never heard that many people that unashamedly thrown almost on cue.
With what line?
When you said that there was going to be a sermon, after each bar mitzvah did his own Devar Torah, and their parents talked, and there was the announcements.
It was nice the way you stood there.
Look, we promised you tuna at 12.
Yeah.
I know, I told that to my time, he was worried what we were gonna eat, and I said, Rabbi always promises tuna by 12.
Tuna by 12. That is our North Star.
Yeah.
So you were going rapid.
Well,
We were more efficient, thank you. We were more efficient than I thought, which was expected.
Good job, yeah, I was watching you,
And moved things along.
yes.
I mean, look, the truth is, like, to do two, and it was helpful, it was a short Torah portion, and most of the Torah readers were actually very competent, so things really moved along. And then the Bar Mitzvah boy who led Musaf definitely had a sense of alacrity. So, you know, I figured out that I had room for about a 12-minute sermon in there. But, like, it could have, there could have been none. If we had been, 10 minutes later, I wouldn't have bothered. They did put it in the, sorry?
So, was it from that book, from, if I met Malcolm Gladwell, that you talked about it, the most important Jewish events of the last,
That was not his statement.
okay, well, I didn't get the book, why did you mention the book in the first place?
Because he was talking about the fact that the Holocaust, for the first 10 years, people didn't talk about it, right? That they basically said, if we're going to live our lives, we can't talk about what happened. Survivors, like, didn't tell their stories. You want
And, but then, I guess what I'm wondering is, so was there like a survey about what the most significant event in Jewish history was that your commentary?
to ask people, but it is common wisdom.
Yes.
Like, what are the two most historic, important events in Judaism in the last 100 years?
Oh, the last 100, that's
100 years.
Okay, that's an important qualifier.
Because that part I didn't catch, but I didn't catch the last 100 years.
Or if you ask most people, like, or the fact is, the truth is, in terms of, in general, in Jewish history, what two events do they know about? Those are the two.
See, if you ask me, I will. If you asked me and didn't clarify the last 100 years, it would not occur to me to mention anything that happened in the last 1,000 years.
And I'm so sorry our parents. One thing I know is, and is the, coming this, and they never talked to them. My friend Lily in Ramowitz, therefore, I think that's why we're dead. And,
It was. I think maybe the third or fourth funeral.
she was a Holocaust survivor. I cannot remember two things she mentioned to us about it the whole time. She was a very Nelson, right after the invasion. And then she went to school and her brother was Titus. Titus, she didn't talk about, of course, they're all over. I have no idea what they do. But she was in the and she archived the back. Listen to it. I've got to go back. I actually have to hear, I have to see my Lily watch her.
Really named for Lily Roberts.
I mean, I knew her my entire life. And it's a long story, but I knew her literally. And, yeah, she was very involved with it. Go ahead.
No, but I did not.
Yeah,
It's funny because I didn't know you back then.
no,
I would never have known.
no.
All right, so we have about 20, 25 minutes to study together. And even though I spent more than 25 minutes prepared, I want to, so let's see what we can get to be honest. So the question that I posed was, so my son, if he has my credit card, is it permissible for me to allow him to use my credit card to buy non-kosher food that I'm going to eat, right? Or if I go out to lunch with someone and and I buy and they order something non-kosher, is that allowed? Well, they are very similar, right? The question is, can I aid and abet someone who is going to violate the law? So you may,
One is a member of your family and the other.
So he's an adult member of my family. So it does, in this case, because he's an adult, it doesn't necessarily matter. But, right, so maybe it matters if it's family or not, right? You can say, but if they're Jewish or not, right? That is although perhaps not, right? Because by the way, there are only 7 commandments that apply to non-Jews, but they are pretty serious. So framing the question, to what extent, if a Jewish person is going to sin, to what extent can I aid and abet them in that? Or to what extent do I have to refrain and withdraw? Does that apply to someone who is not Jewish? Right, so those are some of the questions that we might put together. And I will sort of spoil it for you. The reason I'm thinking about this is one of the questions that often come before conservative rabbis, the question that has been debated, is the question of officiating at an intermarriage. And so the issue is that the Torah does not say anything about officiating. Right? The Torah says, as far as the Torah is concerned, a marriage is a man conducts business with the bride or the bride's father. Right? There's no officiant, right? There's no, right? And even in the Talmud, all of the cases discussed in the Talmud of marriage are that the involved parties contract directly, right? There is no need. The idea of a rabbi officiating marriage actually doesn't even appear in our tradition until less than 1,000 years ago, which is like last week. So the question is, right, the Torah, the Talmud, other Jewish law codes are very specific about prohibiting a Jewish person from marrying a non-Jewish person, but that is the intransitive verb. What about the transitive verb, right? Can I marry a Jewish person to a non-Jewish person, right? And what does that even mean to do that in Jewish law? So that is a messy and big question. But narrowly, the question is, to what extent, in general, if someone is going to violate Jewish law, to what extent am I obligated to refrain from assisting them? And this comes up in all kinds of settings. So, for example, we are having an event in a couple of weeks. It's a parents' night out at Putchak. And one of the questions that came up was, should we let people order their own food, or should we provide a vegetarian-only menu? So look, vegetarian food at Putchak is kosher at a very low level, right? I mean, it is not non-kosher, but it is kosher to a very low level, right? In the sense that we have a pretty clear understanding where those pots and pans have been. On the other hand, if we don't provide food, people will buy whatever they want, right? Which could include, like, bacon sliders, or I don't even know what they have on the menu there, but I'm sure bacon, shrimp, I don't know, whatever. Although oddly enough, bacon and cheese is actually not any more trait than bacon.
Because the bacon itself.
Because bacon is already not kosher, putting milk, cheese on it doesn't make it any worse.
So if you eat pork accidentally or under duress, you can immediately eat dairy after.
Arguably. So I arguably, yes, right, that the prohibition against milk and meat does not apply in non-kosher. But neither here nor there. So the question is, the easiest thing to do would be just wait until they open a kosher Putchak. Waiting a long time, right? So the question is, right, which of those is better or worse? And this question of what does it mean to assist someone who is committing a sin, right? Someone who's violating Jewish law. And if you look at our tradition, the answer to this question comes from Leviticus 19:14. You shall not insult the deaf or place a stumbling block before the blind. You shall hear your God, I am the Lord. So in Leviticus, it says you shall not put a stumbling block before the blind. This verse appears a lot of times in the Talmud. It's actually a very frequent quoted verse. In general, what it is taken to mean is not just literally, I don't know who carries around a stumbling block. I don't know where you would order that on Amazon, right? Like Tim sends you a stumbling block. But the concept is that it's more of a conceptual stumbling. So, for example, don't encourage someone to buy something that is not actually a good product for them. Like, don't set someone up on a blind date with someone who's inappropriate for them, as an example, right? So those are classic examples. So the idea is sort of giving someone bad advice so they will stumble, metaphorically speaking, not literally speaking. And we're going to see an example found in the Talmud in a couple of places, the same discussion in slightly varied forms appears. But we're going to look at it in a tractate called Avodah Zarah. So Avodah Zarah means strange worship, and there's a tractate that deals with how Jews interact, how the rabbis thought Jews should interact with the pagans of their day, right? Because the Torah is very serious about prohibiting idolatry. And so the question is, how do I interact with people who are dyed in the role pagans, right? So for example, there is a bathhouse that has a pagan idol in it. Am I allowed to bathe in that bathhouse? If wine Some of it has been poured off for a pagan libation. Can I drink the rest of it, or does that make it not kosher? The answer is right. So, but the question of how do I, or if something has been used for pagan worship, can I then buy it and use it for a permitted purpose? Or the discussion here, am I allowed to aid and abet someone who is going to engage in pagan worship? Now, by the way, it's important to note that the rabbis did not expect that everyone in the world had to be Jewish. Right? This is not the idea that you can only be saved through our religion. The idea was that the one thing you couldn't do was bow down to and worship idols. And so therefore, if a non-Jew prays to some other deity than our God or worships in some other way, like have at it, right? So in fact, if you look at the Jewish approach to Islam, up until about 100 years ago, or maybe 150 actually, Jews and Muslims generally got along much better than Jews and Christians because we each agreed that the other was not an idolater, right? Like you're my most favorite, unfavorite person. Basically, it was the back and forth that we had. So the Mishnah of Avodah Zarah, the whole start of it, says, on the 3 days preceding the festivals of idolaters, it is forbidden to conduct business with them, to lend articles to them, to borrow from them, to lend or borrow any money from them, to repay the debt, receive repayment from them. Rabbi Judah says we should receive repayment from them, as this can only depress them. And if I collect on a loan, it's going to make you sad. The rabbi said even though it's depressing at the time, they're glad subsequently. Isn't it great that my mortgage was paid off, right? So this is the conversation. The idea is that there were these big pagan festivals, and that you should not go to the market and sell, in particular, in particular animals, right? Selling animals that would be used for sacrifices. But this is actually much more general, any kind of business, because it is going to support them in their pagan whatever it is. So the way this works, so the Mishnah is the general statement of law. It is clear, it makes sense, it's straightforward. And then the rabbis in the Talmud, living over the next 400 years after the Mishnah, muddy the waters, trying to explain everything. So they ask a question. So now I'm at Talmud of Avodah Zarah 6a and b. The dilemma was raised before the sages. What is the reason for the prohibition against conducting business with the Gentiles in the days preceding their festivals? Is it because the Gentile might profit, which brings some joy? Or maybe it's a violation of you shall not put a stumbling block before the blind. Because the idea is, is it that you're putting in a good mood for their pagan worship? Or is that you are helping them because without buying this animal from you, they would not have been able to do their sacrifice? And so then they ask, what's the difference? The difference is the situation where the Gentile already has an animal of his own. Because if the reason is that he might profit, well, you're profiting, right? You're having a financial transaction. But if the reason is due to the prohibition, you should not put a stumbling block before the blind, since the Gentile has his own animal, I'm not making it any worse. He's sacrificing an animal either way, right? I am just sending you, I am helping you, but you couldn't have done it without me, right? So am I really helping? So I might make you feel better, but either way, you're still going to pay for it. So as sort of a side note of this, there was a whole thing in New York over the last day or two with New York City federal prosecutors and the head of someone in the Justice Department was like, you have to drop these charges against this person or we're going to fire you. All right, you're going to have to drop these charges else we're going to fire you. And eventually someone's like, look, they're going to drop these charges eventually. I'm not actually changing the outcome. May as well, right? So that is so that's the conversation, right? This bad thing's gonna happen no matter what I do. Why should I make myself worse off when the outcome is gonna be the same, right? So it's in some ways it's kind of the same question. Mutatis. So the Gemara challenges, but wait a minute, even if he has his own animal, you're still putting a stumbling block before the blind. Right? Because wait a minute, you're still helping him do the thing, right? Because he's using your animal. right? Or the animal that was your animal. And so then we look at the very bottom of the page. From where is it derived that a person may not extend a cup of wine to a Nazarite who is prohibited from drinking wine? He may not extend a limb severed from a living animal to descendants of Noah. The verse just states, and you shall not put a stumbling block before the blind. But here in both cases, if one does not give it to him, he can take it himself. And yet the one who provides it to him transgresses due to the prohibition, do not put a stumbling block before the blind. The Gemara answers, here we are dealing with a case where they are standing on two sides of a river. And so the person could not have taken it himself. Since his help was instrumental, the one who conveyed the item has violated the prohibition. And you can tell the language is a person may not extend as opposed to a person may not give. So that is the so let's see if we can unpack what just happened. So we have two more examples. So the idea of giving selling an animal to someone who's going to worship an idol, right? That is one thing. But then we have two other cases. So wine to a Nazarite. Well, so remember, wine is something that is permitted to everyone, right? The Nazarite has taken a vow not to drink wine. So I'm helping him violate a commandment, even though I am in no way sitting by him, right? If idolatry is something I'm not allowed to do, right? The example of the Nazarite is even sharper because there's no prohibition on me having wine. And by the way, there's no prohibition on the Nazarite owning wine. You're just not supposed to drink it. Right? And similarly, hold on a second. There's an idea of Avraham Hachai, one of the 7 commandments that apply to all of the descendants of Noah, which is everyone, is that they are not allowed to eat the flesh of an animal that was ripped off while it was still alive, right? So a non-Jew can eat, trafe bacon all day long. The pig could have died being hit by a bus. It doesn't matter, right? However it happened, right? However it was killed, as long as the pig is dead before you eat, right? You cannot, you eat a lizard, but you cannot take a bite out of the lizard while it is still alive, right? Which your response is, and by the way, there's actually some cuisines where it's like a thing where some critter is served before it's fully dead and go on, right? But anyway, so in that case, you are not allowed to give the non-Jew this Avraham Hachai because you are helping them violate Jewish law. You had a question.
Right. Does the Nazarite in this question, have they made a personal vow to not drink wine, or they forbidden from some other?
So a Nazarite is someone who takes a particular vow. And being a Nazarite means that you are not going to drink wine, you are not going to cut your hair, and you are not going to come into contact with religion. So it is a particular spiritual class obligation. It's found in the book of Numbers in Parshat Naso. Anyway, so Samson was the most famous of the Nazarites. Although he claimed to be contacting a lot of dead bodies by the time he was done. But so anyway, so Samson, well, they weren't dead when he started. Anyway,
so maybe he went away from them.
Exactly. Anyway, so the point is that a Nazarite has taken a vow, and by Jewish law has committed themselves to not do something that every other Jew is allowed to do, which is to drink wine, and also the whole hair. So later commentators, the Piskei HaRosh, this is about 700 years after the Talmud is finished. Why does it use the example of wine to a Nazarite and prohibited flesh of a living animal for Noah? More so than unkosher meat to a Jew, right? That would have been the greatest example to use. We can understand the flesh of a living animal, right? That's obviously prohibition that we would stand, and even with the wine to the Nazarite, because he is not so careful as to not drink, since he drank all the days of his life before he was a Nazarite, and he sees everyone else doing it, so he might forget. And so therefore, even though he asked generally, you should not give it to him, lest he forget his oath and drink. But it is allowed to give non-kosher meat to a Jew if he does not know for sure that he will eat it. Therefore, it is forbidden to give to one who has left observance something that is forbidden, even if it is his own. So this is actually, right, so this is interesting, right? So if Rabbi K asks me, hey, can you buy a ham for me in the store? I should have no compunction about doing that because I know he's not going to eat it, right? I don't know what he's going to do with it, right? He's giving it to the homeless shelter, right? He's using it to feed people at Family Promise, right, which is the shelter we work with. So if Rabbi K, right, asks me for a ham, I can give it to him because I know he's not going to use it to violate Jewish law, right? If a congregant who I am confident does not keep kosher says, hey, can I take that ham off your hands? I must remain, and I apologize, ham-handed, right? Sorry, I can't. But so, right, so this is the thing, right? So that, but the idea is that I can't enable someone to do something that violates Jewish law, and that's even if I'm giving them their own thing, right? Forget about if I am buying it for them or I'm, right? This is like that's my ham over there. Would you pass it to me, please? Right? So this is actually sort of interesting. So like, let's say for example that, and I'll use an example. So my father-in-law does not keep kosher. So actually the first time that we had dinner together with my parents, the Rabbi in Remington, you know, he orders like a lobster or something like that. And,
So clearly was.
Those things were available. Right, exactly. And there was like a moment on her. Right? But so, you know, so the question is, right, let's say that he is having, I don't know, steak au gratin. He asked me to pass the Parmesan, right? Am I allowed to pass him the Parmesan, right? I mean, it's sort of a like absurd question, but really quite practical, right? Or, you know, like those kinds of things. You know, like, or if I'm at one of these community events to which I'm invited, I'm often invited to a community event that is like, or a wedding, wherever that's not kosher. I usually don't attend. It used to be like a policy that all the conservative rabbis had in town that like if their event was not kosher, we would not go. At this point, I occasionally will make an appearance or whatever it is, depending on sort of what it is. And so I'll be sitting there often with like the Jew plate special, you know, like the little, like, I don't even know what it is, you know, like the little air wrapped up meal or whatever it is, like I have it. Well, and like, so the question is, so meanwhile, the people around are sort of passing the whatever it is back and forth, and I'm at a table with, you know, people I know, right? So like, literally, like, am I allowed to pass them the whatever it is, right? Now, arguably, right, the non-kosher tribe, right? Although they are, right? If they are, I sit at a table with members of the shul who invited me to the dinner, right? And they're all eating whatever the treif is, right? And they say, will you please pass the butter, right? Right? That's where I make a little wall out of my tinfoil for my meal and pretend that I'm not there, right?
Well, they can be present from the
Well, so this is that's why I usually just don't go, right?
Have you ever actually had that experience?
I mean, look, all the time, it does, I try to avoid it. It has definitely happened that I have been sitting at a meal where, like, the food in general is not kosher, and people, like, you know, there's, like, tapas, there's, like, appetizers on the table, and so, like, I was at an event, it was, like, a Black Jewish dialogue, and, like, I mean, I had, like, my little kosher meal, and there were other members of the Jewish community there, and you know, some of them were trying to figure out like what they could pick around and eat. And, you know, and so like, you know, the person next to me is an African American minister, like I have no compunction passing him the calamari, enjoy, right? I mean, I don't even know, right? I mean, it looks to me like I don't even want to, like, I don't know, I like, it doesn't matter. Like the point is, on the other hand, right, if someone, a member of the Jewish people across the table asks me to pass it, So, I mean, arguably, this other side of the river thing gives me an out. Because they could come around and pick it up themselves, right? Or they could ask someone else. They're going to get the calamari one or the other, right? I am making it easier, but I am not making it possible, right? As opposed to, right?
So that's when you butter to someone.
So that would be the argument from this text, right? That because they could have gotten the butter some other way, right? It doesn't really matter. Now I'm going to, since we are coming near to the end of our time, stay tuned, right? So the question is whether he has, the answer is, the question is whether he has any money in his own bank account. Is really the question. Here we go. I want to take us to a different Mishnah in Avodah Zarah 4:9. This is on page 3. One may tread grapes together with a Gentile in a winepress, but you may not harvest the grapes with him. Because after the harvest, the grapes are brought to the winepress, which is ritually impure. Once they're already on the impure winepress, they're already impure, you can't make it any worse. In the case of a Jew who produces his wine in a state of ritual impurity, you can't tread grapes or harvest them with him, because you are not allowed to make the grapes impure. But once he's produced his wine, you can take the barrels to the winepress with him, as the wine is already impure. And you can bring barrels from the winepress together with him. Again, once the sin happened, it doesn't really matter. So here's kind of the takeaway. So if you are at an establishment where the person has already eaten the food, right, and now the bill comes, I'm not making him any more or less trade by paying the bill. He already ate, right? On the other hand, if I buy the food before he ate it, right, then I'm abetting in a different way before the fact. So arguably, like if he went to a sit-down establishment, ordered whatever it was, and then at the end chose to pay with my card, right? I might be annoyed, right? I might dock his allowance, right? But I'm clearly on the right side of this name there, right? On the other hand, if he uses my card to buy the food that he's then going to eat, perhaps I am aiding and abetting in a different sort of way. And in fact, that is my policy with him, which is that if you're using my credit, if you're using the card that I pay, right, then you can only buy food that is kosher. If you want to buy trade, do it on your own time.
And you just said that and he used to.
He does not go to fancy restaurants.
No, but I'm just
Yeah, right. So I'm going beyond.
I have sons and I've been through that my whole life. My kids know when we go out to eat, they eat vegetarian fish or and they are not going to do that with us. They will do it wherever they want. I'm not paying them. That's it.
So this
We're not
is
kids. I'm not talking about our friends. Right? But so are you saying that if he went and had a meal in a restaurant and then and ate it, then it's okay to use your credit card then? I'm just curious.
potentially. So it looks like somebody stole our the ventures. Rabbi came in and put them back. The blue books.
They were in the big room.
I know. So I think someone did not put them back.
Still in the back.
Well, you know what, Rochelle, stay here. We'll just use Cedar Reed.
But it depends on where it went, where it.
Well, and so by the way,
Whatever they want, it's just in front of us.
the other thing is, right, the question of what the limits of the law are and what one chooses to do not need to be the same. Right? Just because legally I am not violating the law by allowing something to happen doesn't mean it's something that I should do or encourage.
Isn't your son as
if we say so things first. I mean that like I would say in that case, if I'm buying it, I should not buy non-kosher food for a Jewish person. It's sort of the answer. If someone's already eaten it, I can arguably pay for it. All right, we're going to turn to your on page 87. 87. Shiva Adonai and Shiva Tzionai Nefom Azimale Svakina Oshane Nurina Az Yom Ravadoyin Hikil Adonai Lasoti Melech Hikil Adonai Lasoti Manu Ainu Semetin Shiva Adonai Ashivitenu Kavdikim Baden Azorim Behedima Behedina Yitzora Halach Yelach Uvacha Nosei Meshech Hazara Yavo Yavo Berina Nosei Alumata. Mouse not here, we'll go right to page 88. Havarai Nevaret. Yisrael Berlam Shu Kavarai Nevaret Shachan Mishala Baruch Shachan Mishala Zivah Baruch Baruch Shema Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asan Eton Kula Betuva Be'achim Be'chasadu Rachamim Onaten Lechem Lechol Basar Ki Le'olam Haskam Oshava Gadol Tami B'chasalanu Ve'ayasalanu Ma'azan Le'olam Ba'ed Ba'or Shema Hagadol Yilazadu Farnes La'akol U'meiti La'akol U'meiti Ma'azan Kol Briyotav Asher Ba'arav Dodelecha Kakatu Yakata Sabata Uderaka Asheraka Ramazan Rafim Rani was from the Papa from your copy assumption for that follow with the Shikaka, Rabbi Pala, Elohim Avinu, Redding Kusuning, Partisan of Pakala, Ratlanu, Adonai Makotrotinu, then I'll touch refrain, you are not knowing you, but the day might not pass out, then the day Hamata. Ima have to Parakpa, only goes to the 90. Percent of the same honor means that half time feet that in the broader social college bubble, drop back to that. Return then your fun or any soldiers. You continue to Bashua Kuba and Kamon. To the name of Shabbat in your college in the Baruch Atah Adonai Barakama Yerushalayim Amen. 91. Loving you, mocking you, adoring you, boring you, calling you, strength to the shackle, row and erase Israel, Hadaka, Tivaka, Shabaka Yom Bayom, Bukiti, Bumeki, Bukiti, Manu, Manu, Lim, Tanel, Kasab, Rakami, Barakata, Saka, Rakami, Shwana, Kamaparasa, the Takala, the Rakami, the time, Shalom, Koto, we come to Bayam, answering you. Alright. Well, let's see if we have enough Jews with us. Maurice and Annie, if you're able to come on screen, we might actually make this thing happen for Marif. Oh, actually, we lost Josh, doesn't it? All right. So we are, why don't we move right to Haggadah? Exactly. So you always ask if Havdalah and Shabbat, how can you like the match? So like Havdalah can't go. The issue is you also still need, so usually you would in the Mari service say the prayer that in Shabbat, so then you can say Havdalah.
The same trope lighting a Shabbat candle at the beginning, you do it slightly before.
Yeah, so you go like this.
Slightly after.
right? But you'll notice, by the way, when you light Shabbat candles, that you light them and then say a blessing. Normally, when you do a mitzvah, you actually say the blessing and then do the Here it's the reverse for that. Question, we'll pick up another. El Yeshua Tiafakalo, God, Kiosi Mishmata, Arana Yeshua, Ushav Damai Besasam in Yeshua, Ladana Shama Khatasala, Anana Shanamu, Lady Hanaros and Constantine Market Tilano, Close Yeshua to Establishment of Cross and Free, Rufata Homer Gafen, Rufata Homer is Sami, Rufata Homer Rainy, Rufata Ranai, among the other quarters of the Kosha. Any sort of mention whatsoever, but I'm on the other corner. What's over everyone? Thank you. Thanks everyone. Have a good week.
Good night.